Everybody loves somebody sometime. Everybody loves somebody sometime. Everybody loves somebody sometime. I'm everybody loves somebody. She's a big city girl in so many ways. She walks and she talks uptown. But she's got something hard to find nowadays that keeps me hanging around. She's a little bit country, makes me think of meadows and clover, apple pie and a pup named Rover, and the good old days. Now she don't know what cheating means. I ain't about to teach her, well, none of them things. She's a little bit country, and I got country ways. I've been around this troubled old world, but I never found peace of mind till I met that pretty little city girl. Lord, you ought to make more of her kind. She a little bit country, makes me think of meadows and clover, apple pie and a puppy named Rover, and the good old days. Now she don't know what cheating means. I ain't about to teach her none of them things. She's a little bit country, and I've got country ways. She's a little bit country, and I've got country ways. Oh, my. These girls are terrible. I know you people don't know what was going on. A couple girls undressing here. They took their shoes off. There. Hey, I feel beautiful. It's that time of the year. Today I saw that man with the white beard and the red suit. An old hippie with a terrible sunburn. You know, I tried to buy a Christmas tree and they were all sold out. There's a shortage this year and Nixon bought them for all his White Houses. And this afternoon, I hung some mistletoe over my dressing room door here at NBC. I tell you, haven't lived until you've been kissed by Andy Williams' bear. Even with his clothes on. Yeah, I think we've got, a fun show tonight. Glen Campbell's here, Gale Gordon, and Dom DeLuise. And speaking of Dom DeLuise, here he is as a dog psychiatrist.
That is absolutely correct. I am the greatest dog psychiatrist in the world. That's right. If you don't believe me, ask your master.
Doctor.
What is it, nurse?
Your next patient is here.
Send him in. Dr. Glick.
Oh, I'm Dean Martin, Doc.
How do you do, Mr. Martin Doc?
No! It's just Martin.
Well, make up your mind. I'm a busy man. Won't you sit down? Hold it. Hey, hold. Up. Stay. On the paper. You cannot be too careful.
I didn't hear you.
I said you cannot be too careful.
Doc, I'm kind of worried about my dog.
You have no need to worry. I am an expert on dogs. I am a dog doctor. I'm a medical bow-wow. Oh. There is nothing about dogs that I don't know. By the way, your cat's pregnant.
It comes as a shock to you, Doc. This is a dog.
I'll be the judge of that. Here, kitty. Sit up, kitty. That's a big pussy cat.
Well, he has
What's the problem?
Well, he hasn't been eating lately.
Do you mind if I have a quick look? 1, 2, 3. That was very quick. Just as I suspected, it could be very serious. Do you mind if I speak confidentially?
Sure, go ahead.
Twice a day, at least. What? Okay, I'm your doctor. Trust me. Okay. Now I would like to speak to you, Miss Willis. Miss Willis! Would you get this kitty cat out of here? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Come on. You would do it. Good out there. Mr. Martin, there is nothing physically wrong with your dog. The problem is all in the mind. But as a psychiatrist, I can help you. Let's start with the basics. What sex is your dog?
What's that?
Look at my lips. What sex is your dog?
I don't know. I never saw it with its fur off.
Now, people, Mr. Martin, please, that is mine. People don't realize that dogs imitate their masters.
No kidding.
No kidding.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
I said that first.
I said that first.
Oh, knock it off.
Good idea. Now, I miss my things. Now, in order for me to diagnose your dog properly, I must see what kind of a master you are.
In order for us to finish the script, you gotta put some of them things back here.
Okay. Pretend, please, that I am a dog.
Oh, as long as you don't pretend I'm a lamppost.
Remember, love, affection, and tenderness works wonders, and your dog will be healthy, wealthy, and wise. Excuse me, I have another appointment. Row, row,
The Dean Martin Show, starring Glen Campbell, Tom DeLuise, Gale Gordon,
You know, Susie, a couple years ago, there was a fellow who used to play guitar on my record dates. He also wanted to be a singer. Well, he became a singer, all right. He also became one of the biggest stars in show business. Ladies and gentlemen, my good buddy, Mr. Glen Campbell.
Well, I bleed around and plead around this old town too long. Well, summer's almost gone, yes, the winter's coming on. Well, I bleed around and I've played around this old town too long, and I feel just like I've got to travel on. Papa writes to Johnny, but Johnny can't come home. I know Johnny can't come home. I said my Johnny can't come home. Well, Papa writes to Johnny, but Johnny can't come home, 'cause he's been on that chain gang too long. Well, I want to see my baby. Well, I want to see her bad. Well, I want to see her bad. Oh, I gotta see her bad. Well, I want to see my baby. Well, I want to see her bad, 'cause she's the best gal this poor boy ever had. Well, I played around and I played around this old town too long. Well, summer's almost gone, yes, and the winter's coming on. Well, I played around and I played around this old town too long, and I feel just like I've got to travel on. Well, the high sheriff and the police, well, they're riding after me. Well, they're riding after me. Oh, they're riding after me. Well, the high sheriff and the police, well, they're riding after me, and I feel just like I've got to travel on. Well, I said I played around and I played around this old town too long, and I feel just like I've got to travel on.
say it's better to give than to receive. To show you just how much fun it can be, here's my good friend, that very talented actor, Mr. Gale Gordon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. May I help you?
Yes, I'd like to buy a gift for a friend.
Then you've come to the wrong place.
Isn't this a gift shop?
Yes, but we only carry gifts for enemies.
Gifts for enemies?
Certainly. A gift is just an expression of feeling. People give nice gifts to express nice feelings. Why shouldn't they give nasty gifts to express nasty feelings? And so we carry gifts for all kinds of enemies, such as this 200-pound box of chocolate.
Well, who would I give that to?
An enemy with a hernia.
Hernia? I don't have an enemy with a hernia.
You will now.
Hey, that's cruel.
Oh, thank you, thank you. But you haven't seen anything yet. Now, just look at this.
Looks like an ordinary pair of pants.
Ah, yes, except for one thing. It has a flea instead of a fly. Tell me, sir, are there any hippies you don't like?
Why?
Well, here's something that will drive them absolutely crazy. An asbestos draft card. Well, now, if they try to burn that, they'll just make an ash of themselves.
You know, you're the nastiest guy I ever met.
Please, flattery will get you nowhere. Oh, we have mean little gifts for anyone who rubs you the wrong way.
I didn't know there was a wrong way.
Now, look at these delightful little instruments of torture. For instance, for midgets you don't like, elevator shoes with a power failure. And for fat people you don't like, a nail to puncture their spare tire. And for unfriendly members of the opposite gender, an invisible birth control pill.
Invisible birth control pill?
Yes, if they'll swallow this, they'll swallow anything.
How did you get to be so rotten?
Practice. Oh, we have charmingly wretched little gifts for all kinds of unpleasant people. For instance, here is a termite-infested sports shirt for the fellow with a chip on his shoulder. And a maternity hat for the girl with a swelled head.
What do you have for the man who says he has everything?
A see-through blouse, so he'll prove it. Well, that'll shut him up.
What are those get-well cards?
Those are get-sick cards, sir.
Get-sick cards?
Yes. Oh, here's one that just came in this morning. It's awfully nice. It says on one side, "Wish you were here."
Well, what's on the other side?
A picture of Forest Lawn. Oh, I almost forgot our pièce de résistance. Oh, you'll flip over this. Pay attention, sir. Pay attention.
You didn't rehearse that, I'll tell you about it.
Now, this is a gift so horrible, you must only give it to the man you dislike most in the entire world. Here it is, a completely lifelike robot.
Hey, why would I give this to the man I hate most in the world?
Because my name is Harold.
surprised how much roosters are like men. When they see a couple of pretty chicks, they start talking like wolves. What? 10,000 hens in this coop, and me the only rooster. Oh, the proud bird is bushed. Well, I think I'm gonna go to the roost now. Yeah, that's where I'm gonna go now.
Hi, I'm Glen Leghorn.
Well, with all those feathers you were wearing, I thought you were Loretta Young.
Oh, I'm the assistant rooster.
Welcome to Old MacDonald's farm.
Oh, so this is old MacDonald's farm, huh? Tell me, is it true? 10,000 chickens here and you and me the only roosters?
Yeah. How about a little blast?
Don't mind if I do. Oh, I needed that.
Well, cock-a-doodle-doo.
Now, that's what I call a real chicken delight. Look at them drumsticks.
You a leg man?
No, I told you, I'm Leghorn.
Leghorn. You like to meet some of my hens?
Oh, you bet your sweet giblets I would. I'd like to meet them. How do I meet them?
You just walk up and introduce yourself.
I couldn't do that.
What's the matter, you chicken? You just invite her over to your place and turn on the charm. You might even find out which came first, the chicken or the egg.
Well, I don't like to talk shop. What do you do for fun around here?
Well, like the other night, I sneaked into the hen house dressed up as Colonel Sanders.
Yeah. What was fun about that?
Well, have you ever seen 10,000 hens lay scrambled eggs?
10,000 hens. That's a lot of hen.
Yeah, but if you get your work done, you can get Sunday off.
Hey, Sunday's off. That's great.
My gosh, I just laid an egg.
Well, there goes Sundays.
Yeah. Give me some of that red eye.
You got 2 red eyes already.
You're gonna have one, too.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Why? I'm all tuckered out. Think I'll sit down and rest my tucker.
You are sitting.
You gave me a drink, will you?
No, listen, you should be ashamed of yourself. A man of medicine, you should set an example. Do you realize that you have not been in an operating room in 10 years?
Oh, I should. I haven't been sick.
How can you call yourself a doctor boozed up all the time? You ought to put a stop to that.
I'll drink to that.
Whoa.
Doc,
What?
you got to help me. I've lost a lot of blood.
No, you haven't. It's right there on the floor.
Please, Doc, take me to the office.
You're in it.
Doctor, here's your big chance. To help this man, go find him another doctor.
Here, what? Fill this prescription.
Okay.
What?
Here's a prescription. Filled.
You know something? You look better already. I ought to warn you, I haven't practiced in 20 years.
That's all right, Doc. I ain't been hit by an arrow in 30 years. I'm gonna do something, Doc.
All right,
Please.
I'll try. I'll try to do something. Whee! Hey, how did it happen? How did it happen?
Oh, not now, Doc. That's a long story.
Well, don't you worry. I got time. Here, bring us a couple of drinks for me and my friends.
Oh, Doc, what about the arrow?
Bring the arrow a drink. Jim.
You gotta help me, Doc. I'm dying.
Well, the first thing you gotta do is quit smoking.
Doc, don't you understand? I don't want to die. I want to live so I can have my own ranch, riding my mare off into the sunset, might even make the girl of my dreams, have some babies.
Who's gonna marry you with an arrow in your chest?
Now, don't just stand there. Don't just stand there looking at this poor fella die. Don't do that. Don't just stand there looking at this poor fella die. Don't you understand that it's mean of you to just look at him die? Why don't you do that? Why?
Well, I'll just cover my eye. Then I won't have to look at him anymore.
I'm ashamed of you. I remember.
You better remember, because it's gonna be your last show. You remember what?
I remember when you were the top doctor in the West, and you pulled 12 arrows. You know what I mean, those things, 12 of those out of Billy the Kid, and he didn't even scream.
How could he? He was dead for 3 days.
Look, I can't stand it anymore. If you can't help me, I'm gonna get out of here. There's gotta be a doctor somewhere.
Well, the nearest one is in Arizona.
By the time I get to Phoenix, I'll be dying.
Any other songs you want to plug before you go?
Well, this arrow ain't gentle on my heart.
Listen to me. You are not getting another drink until you help this man. Do you understand that?
All right. I'll come in. I'll do it. First, I got to make sure I'm sterile. Pour some alcohol there on it. Hand there.
Joe, hurry up. This hurts.
There. That stuff is finger licking good.
Oh, thanks, Doc. You saved my life.
It's all right.
Oh, no! You won't! No, won't! Oh, won't! Oh, won't! See what he moved? Oh, won't! Do you know what you just did?
Yes, I performed the world's first arrow transplant.
Oh!
That's our show for tonight. I want to thank our wonderful guests for being here, and thanks to you for joining us. You know, Christmas will be here soon, and if you and your neighbors are not exchanging gifts this year, just exchange a little brotherly love. See you next week. Good night, everybody.